Unfortunately, in crypto, we share a very tribal approach to how we go about our projects, okay? We always talk about the good things and never the bad things. And unfortunately, a lot of experts are the same as well, whether they're experts within that particular crypto or the entire industry. Either way, they just don't like challenging the status quo. And so I'm here today to give you two actual kind of major reasons why there is a dark side to Hedera HBAR that these experts aren't telling you. And they're not telling you either because they don't want to, because they're unfortunately, with this tribal approach to crypto, is a very, very high chance that they will get attacked, and it's relentless. I have been the target of relentless attacks from even my favorite project of all time, which is HBAR. And I guess I will in this video as well. And also maybe because they just don't understand maybe what they're talking about as much as what they say they do. Either way, one of those two options I think is most definitely the reason why we don't really hear experts talking about the dark side of projects. And in this case, we are talking about Hedera HBAR. Now, I am going to make this a series, and I wanted to start with the project that I love the most, which is HBAR, to give you all a very clear reason as to why. No matter how much you love a project in crypto right now, there is never 100% like this is the perfect project, there is nothing wrong with it. There most definitely is. You just have to know enough about what you're looking at to poke holes in the ship, whether they are major problems, which are a good enough reason not to invest, or smaller problems. At least you can identify them, and if the project makes any changes between now and then, you could obviously go, oh, okay, they're rectifying the issue, this is a good thing, it makes me more bullish, or okay, they're making it worse, I might step away. Either or, we're looking at HBAR today, and I want to say for the record, all you HBAR fans, let me reiterate this. I love HBAR. I've put so much money in this project. This is my go-to. I don't stop talking about it. So if you're going to hate me, just hear me out and at least take some of this on board, for God's sake. Okay, let's get into it. So if you saw my video last night, I spoke about HBAR and I compared HBAR to other projects as well, and I kind of designed what I thought they would look like as a city in the future, essentially. And the way I kind of constructed HBAR was an industrial-based city that, well, if I read this down here, is heavily under construction in the sense that it has a long way to go until the market dictates its true use cases. Now, and this goes with the actual HBAR, what it is, because it's a very new type of network that works extremely well in every single, I'm not joking, every single which narrative or industry, essentially, right? Gaming, IoT, metaverse would probably be really good at, right? Also, supply chain management, the list does go on, DeFi, right? There's nothing HBAR can't do. However, this is kind of how I feel it looks like right now. And I believe it will be one of, if not the biggest enterprise-grade network in the Web 2 world, so traditional world, or even Web 3 as well, depending on how things progress. But I think where they're positioning themselves is going to be Web 2. Now, of course, the market dictates things, so we don't know where it's going to go right now, though we do have an indication possibly. So, with crypto, again, unfortunately, people always want to hear about the good. They want to select what they want to hear. They always want to talk about this and never the bad, right? They just very narrow-minded. So again, I'm going to open up the possibilities here as to why some of these concerns are with HBAR. And if you are someone who's like, oh, why you want to poke holes in a perfect ship car? Well, what does Warren Buffett say? Don't invest in anything you don't understand. This guy is the world's best, all-time greatest investor. And if he says it, I'm pretty sure he's onto something, right? So you want to understand the good and the bad to spot things and how they progress. All right. Now, before we do, I need to say something because other people won't understand where I'm going to go to next. And there's three things you have to learn with crypto. This is why the industry is so hard to get your head around. There is three things: business model, so traditional Web 2 business models, online businesses, the protocol sense, how the technology works, and token economics. And token economics, by the way, is a whole new type of economics. So there is three basically brand new things you have to get through your head to even begin to contemplate whether a project's good or bad. However, every investor needs to know these things because, again, just like Warren Buffett has quoted before, you shouldn't invest in anything you don't fully understand. Now, in my personal, humble opinion, HBAR ticks all of these well. But again, there is a sort of, let's say, dark side to this as well. Now, it is admittedly a problem a lot of other networks also face. We're going to mainly focus our attention here towards the business model and a little bit of the token economics. Let me continue. Okay, so just to give you the TLDR, as we know, most projects that are layer ones work this way, or very, very similar. I can't speak for every network out there. is they have their bottom layer, which is again HBAR that we all know and love. This is HBAR, and you can run decentralized applications on top of the very layer 1 itself, or you can also create layer 2s, right? Public or private networks, whatever you might want to say in this case. We can get technical here and say that yes, you can actually shard the layer itself, the bottom layer itself, as a private network. But I don't want to get into it. I don't want to confuse people that are new to the space and just want to, learn something new. So within these, layer 2s on the public network, you can also have little economies running within them, right? So, you have your end businesses using it, or even businesses using those sort of products, whatever. But these layer 2s can also be popular networks. For example, we have Polkadot, Polkadot essentially is down here, and we have projects, most of you know Moonbeam, as Moonbeam is like up here, for example, sort of similar to this. Now, HBAR right now doesn't really have layer 2s. It is coming very soon, I believe, but it does offer private instances called the Hedera Consensus Service. I digress. Let's move on, as long as you understand this format, because what we're getting to next is the first sort of minor issue. Now, I've spoken about this before, a lot of heat from the HBAR community for God knows unknown reason. Why? Because a lot of projects do face this issue, all right? Now, this is an issue that, again, we're kind of, trying to find the holes in the ship here, in the sense of we have Web 2 and Web 2 based companies, right? So in these Web 2 based enterprises, and again, this is all HBAR we're talking about here, right? So Web 2, you can have a carbon copy of the HBAR layer, which is this. So again, you can have your carbon copy over here, which is a complete private instance of the network, which means it doesn't need to ever interact with HBAR. They've just said, hey, we're gonna use the Hashgraph, essentially. Thank you for your work. We're gonna buy this off you, and then we're gonna run our own private network with our own nodes and everything like that on it. Fair enough. These are the Web 2 services. The only thing with that, and again, you can have things like, Kyron's cookie company over here, whatever else you want to call the company. In this case, you might have, traditional finance type things, public sector, so like government related sort of operations happening. Central banks might want to use the Hashgraph itself, whatever it might be. It doesn't need to interact with actually what we know and love as Hedera, or the HBAR token, because essentially the way HBAR has designed their network is that these public sector or private sector, whatever it may be, networks that leverage HBAR, they can actually absorb all the information coming on and settling on the public network itself through and thanks to mirror nodes. Okay, so they can absorb, they don't need to actually use the HBAR token. Why is this important to know? Well, for the price to eventually move up with HBAR for a few actual demand, because this is a utility token, the token is designed to be a utility, which means being used. Essentially, these networks, like if I had my own cookie company, right? If I was over here and had my own business, and I was like, you know what? We have all this amazing data on the public HBAR network, and all of these people doing things like, maybe there's a few other small businesses on there that are, food related, and we wanted to extract some data from that food company or companies. We can just set up a mirror node that can just copy all that information out, and we can just track it, which I love. It's cool, but there's no need for the HBAR token. Again, this means that as the network scales, essentially there's no need to buy the token, therefore that utility is slightly diminished. Now, this isn't a major concern, okay, so I want to point this out for you guys as well. And also settle transactions on the public network for guarantees, immutability rather, and transparency. So what this essentially means is to actually need the HBAR token in any of these Web 2 based companies with the private networks. Again, it can be private instances or public instances. Again, private and public based economies, public and private based economies. To then put your information on the HBAR network, you need the HBAR token, okay? Because you're saying, hey, I want to store this transaction, which might relate to this purchase that someone made. We want to prove to them that it's been processed on the HBAR network itself. Therefore, it is there forever, and they can see that, and anyone else relating to whoever needs to know can see that they're on the public network. So that's when they need, obviously, HBAR. Okay, now that we have that down pat, you can see why it might be a little bit of an issue as the network begins to scale, because, and again, this goes for a lot, most, I would probably even close to say all layer 1 networks, is that these private instances, therefore, do not need to interact with the public network. Again, it makes sense if they do for these reasons: guarantees, immutability, and transparency. Again, guaranteeing someone, hey, this transaction has been processed. Immutability, this transaction is definitely secured forever, because, for those who don't know, on a private network, you don't actually, it's just run on a few nodes. There could be 2 nodes for all you care. 1 or 2 nodes. There doesn't have to be thousands or hundreds of nodes. So how does a person really know it's there forever? Those nodes could say, hey, let's just throw that transaction out. And transparency, right? Again, pretty important reason. We'll go into some of these in a second. So anything that happens within Web3, anything that happens through dApps, through any sort of layer 2s that come out, or Hedera token service, and whatever happens on those networks, anything that built on the public Web3 based network always needs the HBAR token. So that's a benefit, right? And I had another influencer, mention something before, which I found, pretty important to mention here, is that a project that's built on HBAR, which is actually called Hedera, we'll get into this in a second here, they have pretty much a private network as well as a public network, base smart contract itself, but they still need the HBAR token to process because they use HBAR for the immutability reasons, okay? So what they essentially do is buy up a whole bunch of HBAR and use that over time for the transaction fees. Okay, I'm sure I've lost some of you guys there, but if you've stayed through and you've listened this whole time, I really want to give you props because that concept is hard for most people to understand. Here's where we get into the more, you could say, dark side, if you will, right? Network effects. So network effects, and I've made multiple videos on this, but essentially network effects, and we're looking at mainly this one over here, dictates when someone joins a network, whether it's a business, like let's say Google, what does that do, right? That Google partnership or Google being on the network should be able to benefit not just Google, it should be able to benefit the people who came before Google, the people who come after Google, and then within that, Google should be able to create multiple groups or mini groups inside the network, which then makes it even more powerful, okay? And this is what's called network effects. Now, you've got different types, right? So initially, these are less powerful network effects. These were the initial versions of what people thought network effects were. The network in the middle, more people join equals the power of the network goes up equal to the number of people on the network. There's 10 people. The value of the network is equal to 10 people. Over here, Metcalfe's law, same sort of thing, except obviously they realize that, hey, people can talk to one another, okay? So the value of the network is equal to the number of people squared, all right? Because again, people can talk to people and it just, squares out from there. But then actually, Reed's law comes in and says, hey, networks may grow proportionally to the network size, but there are also forming groups that scale faster in value to others. So there's mini groups forming faster and faster and faster. So actually, you can have mini groups within larger groups and it just kind of branches out from there. And what this actually looks like when we plot it, this is where we get interesting, right? So we have the value of the network increasing to the number of nodes and users. Now, network effects is interesting because the way it plays out is it's like a slow ball rolling, right? You might have Google joining and then it might take another 6 months to have another partnership form and then another 6 months to have a partnership form. But then eventually these partners, because of this group, begins to get more appealing to a larger audience. Think about it, right? Telephone network. If there was only 2 people on a telephone network, me and you, for example, right, we can only call each other. But if Dave comes and joins us, for example, now I can call Dave, Dave can call you, I can call you, and so on and so forth. Okay, so it begins to grow like this exponentially, and the more people that are on this telephone network, the better, because we can then call them, right? It makes it more appealing to more people. So the same thing applies, and there gets a point where you hit a critical mass. It's very slow growth, as you can imagine, getting people on, you got to claw them in. It grows up exponentially like this, right? And so what we need to look at for HBAR and this kind of dark truth that experts don't want to tell you about essentially, right, is this network effect. It's a business model problem, okay? We come over here. The way that HBAR is going to go exponential is having people use the public, mainly public network, even if there are private instances, but mainly leverage the public network as well, okay? So partners and the governing council play into this, of course, right? Because you have large governing council members like Google, FIS, FPOS, Avery Dennison, ServiceNow, Nomura, Ubisoft, LSE, Deutsche Telekom, so on and so forth. They're big names. People go, oh my God, I want to join HBAR now. That ball is rolling. Same with the partners, right? Avery Dennison, more specifically Hedera.io, right? This was again the example I used before of Hedera going ahead and leveraging HBAR for those transactions, buying up a whole heap of the supply. Again, creates a bit of a supply shock, right? So we have, these guys using the private and public instance, but nevertheless, they do need HBAR for the immutability in the supply chain management, which is what they're doing. Likewise, over here with Hyundai and Kia Motors, they use the public network as well, or at least will be, using HBAR to track CO2 emissions in their supply chain for, guess what? Clarity and immutability. Again, very important. This is the power of the public network where we can all see and use it. Which therefore means we need the public network token, okay? Also, Shinhan Bank as well. These guys use Hedera for cross-border remittances. This will be powerful if they actually decide to move ahead with it, because remittances, a lot of transactions happening, okay? Obviously, a lot of big, fairly big market in that case, right? So what this essentially looks like is the ball rolling. So if you can imagine it, again, like if I come down to this example, this is where I think HBAR is right now on this chart. Again, if we're talking about a chart, right? So the ball has started off slowly, and then it rolls and gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger like this, until we get to a point where we hit critical mass, and then it just goes exponential, okay? And this is what will happen to HBAR, and you have to understand for other projects as well. This is an online business model problem. Very important you understand this. And again, this will come from things like, more governing council members. I think there's like 9 or 10 to still come, so a lot more to still come. Very big names in the pipeline, I'm guessing here. Our community nodes and users, so the community nodes ramping up, bringing more people in, decentralizing the network, making it more appealing to more people, and institutional users as well, partners essentially, right? And so this is the exponential network effects, which is rare to happen, but it is something that crypto is very much known for. I think will happen with this sort of technology, and you do have other types as well. I don't think HBAR will fall into those categories over there, okay? So with that being said, guys, if you did want to learn more about this, I actually did a recent breakdown on Hedera HBAR, like literally today, 8 hours ago. It's a full thread, okay? And it'll teach you all you need to know about HBAR, at least from a very, very high view, okay? So that was essentially what experts are telling you. Now, again, it's hard to poke holes in almost a perfect ship with HBAR. I just wanted to point this out because, again, one, it's a great educational lesson for all of us, and two, because it shows you that this ball, it's a big snowball, right? And it's definitely moving right now, but it's definitely got a long way to go until we find this mass adoption. Again, just like the first image, Hedera is most definitely under construction right now. It is figuring out what the market wants. I believe it'll pretty much be used for most things, but supply chain and stuff like that, okay? Even remittances like cross-border payments, okay? So now a lot of people falsely accuse HBAR of having a bad distribution and a bad vesting. I don't know what they're talking about. We don't even know what the vesting schedule really is. This thing is sort of forecast every quarter, so we don't actually know what it's going to be, in the future past that. And if you have a look over here, a lot of it is unallocated supply. And if you actually go ahead and read what these entities are, like down here, this is literally on their transparency, like their treasury management transparency page, you will know exactly what this is. And if you have any idea of percentages in regards to distribution in typical distributions within cryptocurrency, you know that this is anything but a bad sort of a distribution, all right? So guys, make sure you don't fall for FUD. Again, it all depends on your own personal investment ideologies. This might be, you might only want, fan mined altcoins. Fair enough. That's your own sort of, idea of what's a good project. But in my opinion, it is okay. So that all being said, thank you so much. I understand it was a bit of a difficult video to possibly get through in terms of understanding, but I really do hope you grasp these two concepts because, again, HBAR is probably on the better end of those two things compared to the most of the crypto industry. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. Talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.